Hello, YouTube. Sidekick here with another in the series of videos that we're making about Cold War missions for the A-10. Missions that try to recreate the situation that would have been expected if the Warsaw Pact had invaded West Germany in the early 1980s. I've already done a few videos on this, and if you really want to be up to date, you should probably go watch them. This video will probably make a lot more sense if you've already seen them. So, as the other videos have pointed out, this project is really about trying to recreate not just the weapons, the vehicles and the aircraft, but also the tactics that would have been employed by both sides. So if you followed the other videos, you'll know that this means that we're going to have a lot of moving parts in these missions. There's a ton of Soviet vehicles, but it also means that the missions really can't be flown solo. So we need to make these multiplayer missions. And we're finding out that we can't really fly them the way, a lot of us are used to flying Cold War missions in the Hog or any other aircraft. And I think the last mission, called A Bad Day Out, really pointed that out. I mean, even with the best intentions, we saw in that video that if you indulge your inner kamikaze in this scenario, it just won't work. We also found out that it's not enough to fly with some other players. You really do have to fly as a team, not only within your elements, your two-ship elements, but even in the larger flight. And real coordination is required amongst all the elements, even when the aircraft can be very far apart on the battlefield. So that means that one essential element to achieving the coordination is you really got to know the ground that you're flying over, and you got to know where and when to look. And this would have been typical of A-10 pilots in West Germany. They would have been assigned essentially a kill box, and they would have practiced their entire deployment would have been practiced over that one piece of ground. So they would have known what they were looking at. And speaking of the A-10, we also did discover, I think started to discover, why the A-10 was built the way it was, which, isn't always obvious. The thing that I think I'm really finding is that more than anything else, the A-10's ability to loiter, to observe, and to maneuver around the battlefield makes it, like a very different kind of weapon than a fast jet. And it's pretty clear that when, to me, at least when the Hog gets a bad name, when people compare it to fast jets, it's really because that's not the right comparison to make. The right comparison to make is to compare it to the threat that it would have faced. And you can't do that by just putting it up against a single tank. You have to put it up against an entire motor rifle regiment, which is what we're doing here. So in this video, we're going to take a look at, the last video was really about some tactics that didn't work. This video, we're going to look at some tactics that we're starting to learn ways to use the Hog effectively. And again, like I said, the key is teamwork. That's what makes the dream work. So in the background, you've seen there are 6 A-10s. This is Hammer Flight, taking off to engage the lead elements of a Soviet motor rifle regiment. Well, the lead elements of the motor rifle regiment are coming into contact with the covering force, and the covering force is called for air support to take on the follow-on echelons while they take out the lead elements. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be flying and attacking the enemy in depth, not right up against the friendly forces. Again, if you want a little bit more of a description of the ground we're going to be flying over, you should go back to the previous video, A Bad Day Out. I'm not going to go over that again. I will talk about the plan that we're going to use, which is similar to the previous video, but improved in some ways. So here's the area of operations here. You can see the enemy main concentration that we're after is right here, which is along the back of this central kind of woodlot that we call Central Park. So we're going to take on that enemy concentration in the following way. Hammer 1 and 2 we're going to ingress down low over here on this side. This is an area we call Sleepy Hollow. So they're going to go down Sleepy Hollow, pop up over the ridge, attack the enemy from reasonably close range, and then they're going to skedaddle down the valley of Leskin, the town of Leskin here. While they're doing that, Hammer 3 and Hammer 4 are going to come in and fly what we call a high cover mission, which means that they're going to be a little bit behind Hammer 1 and 2. They're going to be at a higher altitude over Central Park. They really basically have 2 missions. The first is obviously to provide observation of the enemy target area, looking for threats, and also look in the distance, because we know there are some long-range SAMs in the distance, so they'll be watching the horizon for launch signs. They'll also be a little bit of a decoy. Because they're higher up, they'll probably be spotted, certainly by the long-range SAMs, a little bit earlier than Hammer 1 and 2. They may even be spotted by SAMs in the target area, but they'll be farther away. So if those SAMs want to take a shot at Hammer 3 and 4, it will actually decoy them away from shooting at Hammer 1 and 2. So the thing we found in the last episode is that we really have to get this coordination right, though. We can't send Hammer 3 and Hammer 4 in too early, because if we do, they'll already be leaving the area by the time Hammer 1 and 2 pop up, and they won't have a really good view of the target area. So that's the one thing we're going to try and improve over the last time. So let's roll the tape. Here is Hammer 1, and he is flying down Sleepy Hollow. You can see he's approaching Leskin. Now, Hammer 2 is following Hammer 1, but in a fairly loose trail formation. So as you can see, Hammer 1 is approaching Leskin. That's where the black smoke is coming from. So he's getting close to his pop-up point. Meanwhile, over Central Park, Hammer 3 is leading Hammer 4 on the high cover mission, and they've started in, which is good timing, because as Hammer 1 is sort of approaching the target, their eyes are definitely on the target area. You can see they're also flying in a very loose formation. So here's the view from Hammer 4. You can see over on the right hand there, that's where the target's going to be, but just so you see the entire area of operations, we'll stand back over here. Okay, Hammer 1 is in his pop-up now. He's rolling over the top, and he has spotted the targets, and he is going to launch a salvo of rockets at them. So all of that is going pretty well. He's egressing, and there were absolutely no threats that took a shot at Hammer 1. So he's still flaring, just to be on the safe side. Okay, here's the view from Hammer 3, watching in Overwatch. There you can see the launch of Hammer 1's rockets. And if you keep an eye on just over his canopy here in a sec, you will, there you go, is the impact of the rockets. And notice that as he leaves flaring, he is completely clean, because Hammer 3 sees no enemy launches. Now, life starts to get interesting at that point, and it's not because of Hammer 1 and Hammer 3, it's because of Hammer 4 and Hammer 2. The first interesting thing that happens is that Hammer 3 hears Hammer 4 say, rifle. Which, of course, means that Hammer 4 is launching a Maverick. And what is he launching a Maverick at? Well, it turns out that Hammer 4 has spotted an enemy artillery battery, actually 2 batteries, that are deploying. And one of our target lists of high priority is any artillery battery that is deployed, because once an artillery battery is deployed, it tends to fire on friendly forces, which is a bad thing. So Hammer 4 locks up one of the self-propelled howitzers and launches a Maverick. Now, this is what it looks like from Hammer 3's perspective, looking back at Hammer 4. You can see that Hammer 4 is continuing into the target area because he's going to fire a second Maverick. Meanwhile, Hammer 2 is also entering the picture. Having seen that Hammer 1 had a pretty clean run, he's made the reasonably bold decision to actually drop Mark 82 bombs on the target, because the rockets from Hammer 1 didn't seem to do very much. Now, the reason that this is a bold decision will become clear in a moment. It basically means getting up to a reasonable altitude fairly far inside the kill box. And when that happens, then suddenly the enemy starts to take an interest. Evidence of that fact is shown by the smoke trail here, and the smoke trail here. The first of these is an SA-6 aimed at Hammer 2. The second of these is an SA-9 aimed at Hammer 2. So, having taken the bold decision to get up high and get seen, Hammer 2 is now attracting exactly the kind of attention you would expect. Now, Hammer 3 can't see any of this because he's turned away, but Hammer 4 can, so that's why he's flaring, and then when he hears the SAM calls, Hammer 3 does likewise. And here's what it looks like from Hammer 4's perspective. He launches a second Maverick, and then realizes he's been pretty close, so he starts to drop flares. Now, meanwhile, back with Hammer 2, who started this whole thing, You can see him leaving town, with the Sam following him very closely, but in fact he manages to evade that with the skillful use of flares, and then he keeps turning and actually ends up having another Sam, which explodes back behind him there. So, all in all, a fairly sporty run for Hammer 2. But now he's back in Sleepy Hollow, where he's basically masked from anything that is going to shoot at him, so even the SA-6s won't see him anymore, so he's basically safe so long as he stays low and egresses down Sleepy Hollow. Hammer 4, on the other hand, is now right in the middle of it, and he is flaring, and he is watching all of the SAMs that are aimed at Hammer 2, but also one that has his name very much on it. Luckily, though, he's flying an A-10, and IR SAMs definitely prefer flares to A-10s. Now, here's Hammer 3 egressing. He's safe. He's hoping that a Hammer 4 is going to be safe behind him, but then, well, there's one small moment of tragedy in this story. See that little burst of smoke behind Hammer 3, and that's because Hammer 4 forgot the cardinal rule that just because you don't look behind you doesn't mean something isn't gaining on you. So he flares, but a little too late. And even though his A-10 may be finished for quite some time, it looks like he's going to live to fight another day. So, that is an example of, at least, if not doing it right, getting a lot closer to doing it right. We did cause some casualties in the enemy. We lost one A-10 damaged, but we also got some really good intel about where the enemy is concentrated, and that wouldn't be the end of the fight by any means. It wasn't the end of our flight. So if you want to keep seeing more of this kind of content, then please do keep tuning into the channel. I'm going to make an announcement fairly soon about actually opening this up to basically anybody on my Discord channel who wants to come and fly this mission. So if you're interested in doing that, drop by my Discord channel and watch this space for that announcement. Thanks for tuning in. And for now, this is going to be Sidekick, signing off.